One of the reasons I was really successful in corporate, and I want you guys to wrap your brains around this, especially those of you on LinkedIn who are like searching for jobs. One of the reasons I was so successful and climbed very quickly in the corporate ladder way back in the 80s and 90s is because I didn't have the mindset that I needed to stay with a company. I knew at a very young age, I knew at 19 that companies were not going to be loyal to me. My dad came from the mindset in the school that you work for a company, you stay loyal. That's our parents' mindset. That's not how it works anymore. We live in a competitive marketplace. But some of you still have weird mindsets about staying loyal to your position and loyal to your company and your coworkers. That is never how I operated, because this happened to me when I was 19. I worked for a company, some of you may know the name, Schick Shadle. Remember the alcohol rehabilitation clinics way back in the 80s? I worked for the parent company of those clinics, the Schick Shadle clinics. And we worked Friday afternoon till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And this company apparently was having financial issues, and they closed down the company at Friday at 3 o'clock. They walked in and told us all, hey, we're bankrupt. You don't get your pay for a week. They had to have known on Monday. We didn't get paid for that entire week. And it was at that moment that I went, I will never be loyal to a company again, because they're only loyal to themselves. This whole idea of loyalty to a company, you want me to be loyal to you? For what? Right? No, no, no. So, see, with me, like, versus my cousin, who's a super loyal individual, he's super hardworking, he's so creative and innovative, and they are using him like very minimally to the height of his capabilities. And here's the reality, right? He could do so much more, but because he's been stuck in this position with this company who went through a massive shakeup, like they had a big reorg because one of the owners of the companies got in trouble. It was in the paper. There's a whole change of the board and the board of directors, and they brought in all these new people that don't know how the company runs. So some of you may be going through that, or you're just in a toxic job and you're like, I don't know how to get out. And I'm going to share the same thing I shared with him. Don't underestimate your experience, life experience, and also experience in the job and on the job. Forget about the degrees. There are companies out there that will look at your experience, literally take the time on your resume to pump yourself up and list it out. What is your experience? What are the breakthroughs? What are the innovations? He had forgotten about all those things. They're not even on his resume. You wrote a freaking training program, rewrote a training program that TSA spent millions on in 2 weeks to simplify it so that the employees having to take that training could actually understand it, because half of them are Spanish speaking, more than half of them. The English is a second language, and nobody took that into account when they created this training. That's a big deal. Highlight that. And he's like, you're right. I was like, how many people in your area, in your industry, have worked their way up from working in the warehouse to working in the shipping to knowing how to deal with international shipping and all of the regulations and the TSA and the FDA, because they do cold perishable stuff. And he's like, there isn't anyone. I'm like, right. So why aren't you asking for double the salary? And he's like, you're right. You're right. I do have the experience. Forget about the degrees. And it just took that conversation. We had maybe a 45-minute conversation to get him out of his head of feeling like my life is being sucked from my toenails. And I hate this. How long am I going to? I mean, he was going to wait it out to see if the company turned around. You don't have to wait it out. Literally, when I went through that with Schick Shadle, where they called us in at 3 p.m. into a whole, like they called us into the big lunchroom, and they're like, sorry to tell you, don't come back to work on Monday. Y'all can go home at 3 o'clock. And I'm like, you knew this at 8 a.m. You knew this on Monday. You could have been honest with us that you weren't going to pay us for the week. Your bankruptcy just got approved. So now you're laying all of us off, firing us, and you don't have to pay us. This was back in 1986. And that was my first experience at 19 years old with a corporate company that just had no regard for the employees, no regard. Like, I just spent a week of my life that I don't get paid for, and that's okay. Taught me a long time ago, don't be loyal to a company.